Back in January, we held another Lincoln seasonal. It was a Delta event, was therefore all the excuse I needed to play Grox again. I looked at a few other armies, but in the end, I knew I was probably just going to play Grox, so I didn't do too much other play testing. The format was format, so each round was going to be a different format. Since one of the rounds was assassination, we had to have at least three different unique heroes in our army. I ended up bringing several armies for several other guys, and I'll throw a few of them up on the map here. But the army I ended up going with was Grox times four, Miburxa, Igaxa, and Johnny Shotgun. Round one, I was against Max on Ceremony. Format wise, we started off easy with just kill them all, so no special rules. His army was Blade Ruts times three, Grimnak, Nirak, and Ornak. This was probably in the top three of the armies that showed up there today, along with mine and Ryan's dwarf build. I actually got really lucky I didn't face Ryan's army, as his axe grinder would have had a wonderful time tearing my Grox apart with them all being large. But he lost in round two and so got knocked down. Max overextended his orcs in round one, and it actually got me to be overconfident, and I made some bad moves myself, like putting Grox underneath height and some other suboptimal positions. After losing a few Grox, I ended up pulling back and playing way more conservatively, controlling Wanak for a round, which he ended up putting on Grimnak, and giving up a couple of attacks in order to not be on low ground the next round. I then got a big hit on Grimnak, doing 4 wounds in one hit, and took him out, and was able to come back and win. It could have gone away though, as Miburxa soaked several more attacks than he should have, but I think Ornak did as well. So after round one, I was 1-0. Round two was on domination against Fuzzy Bob using the assassination format. Glyphs on this map were Wanak and unique attack +1. Fuzzy Bob was running Board Glide Strikers, Wing Commander Tuck Harrigan, Knight Irene, Frost Claws, and Sergeant Drake Alexander 3.0. In the assassination format, we have one of our opponent's figures as our target, and if we eliminate that figure, we win. But I don't know who he picked, and he doesn't know who I picked. I was assuming he was going to pick me Berksa as his target, with how squishy and powerful he is, and I chose Irene. I figure if they pick Nigaxa as the target, he's tanky enough that he should last long enough, and Johnny and Miburxa would just camp in the start zone. I very likely should have lost this game, as my opponent started off using his glide strikers very well, which was to just drop in a glide striker, take a shot of three at Miburxa, and then let that glide striker die. So he only did that 2 or 3 times, and then he quit doing it. I think he wanted to make use of the unique attack +1 glyph with the rest of his army. If he had kept going with what was working, he would have won, as Berkshire would have likely only survived 1 or 2 shots. But he brought forward Irene, and I was able to surround her with Nigaxa and several Grox, and I took her out. So after round two, I was 2-0. The main thing I could have done differently in round two to help prevent me Berksa getting taken out, especially when I realized I was going against Glide Strikers, was to tuck me Berksa in a corner and then spread out my double spaced Grok Riders as much as possible to try to limit anywhere that a Glide Striker could land, as a Glide Striker can't land adjacent to a figure. So ideally, I could have spread enough guys out, covered enough ground to prevent him from dropping in a guy anywhere close, but I didn't think about that until I dropped in the Striker. Round three was against Kyle on Canary using the control points format. Kyle brought Venox times three, Maladrix, Festering Honor Guard, Glenerva, and Asamo. Glyphs were Dagmar and Sola Astrid. This game was on stream, so I've got a few screenshots from it. You can see the control points in the middle of the map here and here on where the dots are on the map, but they don't come into play, so I probably won't bring them up again. Kyle ended up extending Mal in round one and brought her nearly all the way to my start zone. So I was rapidly able to get several Grox and Nigaxa adjacent to her, and she went down pretty quick. I think she was down by the end of round one. I actually ended up taking an extra turn at the end of round one, so I took 4 turns, and I realized it as soon as I finished that 4th turn, which had taken out Maladrix. I let Kyle decide whether we walk that turn back, figure out what the game state was before that turn, or let him take an extra turn with any unit of his he wanted to. Since he was running Venox, he chose to take an extra turn so he could get another opportunity to frenzy, which unfortunately he didn't get the frenzy, and I don't think he got a frenzy at all during this game. In hindsight, we probably should have just walked the turn, pulling up the victory where it was at, but we wanted to keep the game moving. I think that's a lot of what went into his thinking also, was just whatever, I'll take a turn and keep the game going. After taking out Mal and the Festering Honor Guard, though, the zero defense Grox went down quick. I think I even mind shackled Glenerva at the end of the game, and that was the final straw. So after round 3, I was 3-0 and going into the finals. Round 4 was against Big Krug Daddy on Canary again, using Scouting Party. Big Krug Daddy was running the Drax, Crimson Widow, Iron Lich Viscerat, Necrotech Wraith Riders, and Eldgrim. In Scouting Party, we could start 8 figures or 210 points, no closer than 4 hexes away from our opponent's start zone. I could start Nigoxa in 2 full squads forward, so I put Nigoxa on height and surrounded him with 2 squads of Grox. And my opponent put Eldgrim down on this side by the glyph and then the Wraith Riders on the other height. My opponent also had +6 to the opening initiative, but I was still able to win and the game started. I almost didn't see the big mistake that Big Krug Daddy made, which was to put Iron Lich and all 3 of his opening order markers within range of Nigoxa and 3 Grox. Thus, on the first turn, I was able to get a Mind Shackle chance and Nigoxa's attack of 3 and the 3 attacks of 5 from the Grox, and the Iron Lich went down on the first turn. So he lost his entire first round of order markers. He basically called it there, but we did play another round or two, but there wasn't much chance for him. And I took out the rest of his army. And with that, I went 4-0 for the first time at a Lincoln Seasonal. The big takeaway for me at this tournament was pay attention to your opponent's mistakes and take advantage of them when you can. In the first game, he overextended his orcs, which then caused me to play suboptimally, but I recovered and started playing more conservatively and get my guys in better positions, kind of going back to the basics. Second round, he quit doing what worked and brought his Irene up, so I was able to take out. Game, he overextended Mal. In the fourth game, he placed Iron Lich Viscerat wrong in his start zone. If he had put Iron Lich in a different spot, he would have had a better chance, but I still think I was probably winning that game just with how many more figures I had. Everyone got Raylan 4.0 as the promo just for coming, and I walked away with the Deflectatron as my prize. We had a lot of older promos left, so everyone ended up with something else besides the Raylan. And we also had a few dice bowls and some other random prizes. This was our biggest turnout yet with 18 or 19 people. And 5 of those people, this was their first time coming, and at least 2, this was only their second time coming. So our scene here is definitely continuing to grow. Ryan is doing the next Lincoln Seasonal in April, which is going to be a Storm Championship. Unfortunately, I'm not going to make it to that one, but we are holding a Midwest Melee in May, on May 23rd, which is actually going to be an Alliance War. So look for that coming up. And thank you to Ryan for another successful tournament.